The coldest cruelty isn't a screamed insult, but the calm, sterile voice that tells you your life's work has been deemed redundant. Due to recent restructuring, your role has been deemed redundant. We appreciate your nearly 11 years of service, but we have to let you go. The words, flat and emotionless, came from the screen where Julian Vance's face was a study in corporate detachment. He didn't blink. He didn't even look at me. He was reading from a script. We need you to clear your desk by 4:30 p.m. Your final compensation will be wired within 15 business days. A silence, thick and suffocating, followed. The triumph I had felt just moments before, from the successful closing of the $102 million Nakamura deal, evaporated like steam. I stared at the man who had just dismantled my professional life. My CEO, my boss, my new enemy. My jaw tightened. Redundant, I repeated, my voice a dangerous whisper. Are you kidding me, Julian? I just closed the biggest contract in this pathetic company's history. I am the very definition of essential. This has nothing to do with restructuring and everything to do with the fact that you're a coward who can't handle a strong woman. His face, which had been impassive a moment ago, now showed a flicker of fear. He wasn't used to being challenged like this. Amara, that's uncalled for. This is a difficult decision. A difficult decision? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. No, Julian. A difficult decision is choosing between two great architects. This is an act of pure, unadulterated cowardice. You can't even tell me this to my face. You hide behind a screen. My fury was a cold, hard stone in my chest. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at him. The victorious smile I had worn moments ago now, replaced with a gaze of pure, focused venom. You're not just letting me go, Julian. You're letting go of the one person holding this entire system together. You just don't know it yet. I hung up. My hand, which had been perfectly steady during my presentation, now trembled slightly. The triumph had become a bitter memory. But the anger was real, and it was telling me one thing. I would not be undone. With a practiced motion, I reached for my phone. My fingers moved with a furious grace, bypassing the mundane and finding the encrypted directory. The one no one at Nexus Innovations knew existed. The one called Sentinel Loop. I tapped it once. No confirmation. No warning. Just a silent command, a ghost in the machine they thought was theirs. It wasn't a tool for revenge. It was a tool for justice. And it was time to make them understand the difference. My rage was a cold, quiet thing, a well of ice deep in my chest. The world outside my office window was oblivious. Cars honked, pedestrians hurried along the busy streets of Vancouver, and the glass towers reflected the late afternoon sun. It was all a lie. A beautiful, ordinary lie. Everything looked normal. Except nothing was. I stood up slowly, the leather of my chair making a soft, protesting sigh. I didn't cry or scream. Crying was for victims, and I wasn't one. My anger was a precise surgical instrument. It focused my thoughts, sharpened my actions. I put on my tailored jacket. My hands, steady as a surgeon's, reached for a few personal items. My grandfather's antique fountain pen, a small photograph of my son when he was 5, and a tiny stone bishop from a chess set that had served as my paperweight since my very first day as chief architect. I left everything else behind, the awards, the plaques, the framed legacy they pretended to cherish. I knew they weren't just discarding me. They were discarding the only person who truly understood how the entire system worked. Instead of walking to the elevators, I veered right, down a long, forgotten hallway to the 21st floor women's restroom. The motion sensor light flickered on with a quiet click, illuminating a space of sterile white tiles and cold porcelain. The mirror never lies. My lipstick was still perfect. My white blouse was pristine, and my hair was neatly tucked behind my ears. I looked like a woman who had just closed a 9-figure deal. I looked nothing like a woman whose name had just been erased from the very infrastructure she had built. My phone, clutched in my hand, buzzed again. Another call from Julian. I ignored it. I walked out of the restroom and found an empty conference room, its glass walls reflecting a distorted image of the city. I dialed Isla's number. She picked up on the second ring, her voice tight with stress. Amara? Oh, thank God you called back. I've been trying to reach you. Julian is having a full-blown meltdown. What's going on, Isla? I asked, keeping my voice deceptively calm. He told me to clear my desk and leave. Is there a problem? A problem? The entire network is a problem. It's like the system has a mind of its own, and it's decided to commit suicide. We lost the main server connection, and now the backup is failing. The entire architectural database is corrupting itself file by file. Isla's voice was a frantic whisper. The IT team is useless. They don't know what to do. They keep saying the code has been rewritten from the inside, but they can't trace it. A small, grim smile touched my lips. Rewritten from the inside? That sounds dramatic. It is. We have clients calling, the stock is dropping, and Julian is screaming at everyone. He just fired Greg from IT on the spot. I leaned against the cold glass wall, a feeling of satisfaction coursing through me. Poor Julian. Sounds like his restructuring plan is running into some unexpected turbulence. Amara, listen, I know this is a long shot, but you have to come back. Isla pleaded, her voice cracking. The Nakamura group is calling back, demanding an explanation. No one can open the files for their project. You're the only one who can fix this. Please, for all of us. Isla, darling, I'm sorry. My role was deemed redundant, I repeated, the words tasting like victory. And as for the Nakamura files, well, let's just say some data is more resilient than others. I've got to go. Be smart, Isla. I hung up, silencing my phone once more. The chaos I had set in motion was a distant hum, a symphony of destruction that was music to my ears. My Sentinel loop, a phantom protocol I had been meticulously building since 2018, was now alive and well. It was doing what it was designed to do, protecting my legacy, one silent line of code at a time. The world was about to see what happens when you try to erase a woman who has a voice in every line of code. My journey had just begun. The world outside was a kaleidoscope of normalcy, but in my small corner of it, a revolution was underway. I finished gathering my few belongings and made my way out of the office, past the humming servers, down the long corridor, and into the elevator. The doors slid open to the ground floor, and I stepped out into the bustling lobby, a nameless face in a crowd of corporate drones. Just as I reached the revolving door, my phone buzzed in my hand. It was Isla. My stomach tightened. I had to maintain the illusion of innocence. Amara? Oh my God, are you there? Isla's voice was a frantic whisper, a stark contrast to my own cold calm. The servers are down. The entire system just crashed. We can't access anything. Our project files are all corrupted. Isla, what are you talking about? I feigned confusion, my voice flat. I just left. Everything was fine. No, it wasn't. The moment you disconnected, it was like the whole system went into a seizure. We're getting error messages we've never seen before. A dozen teams just lost their entire day's work. Her voice was a tight wire of panic and frustration. Julian is having a meltdown. He's yelling at the IT guys, but they have no idea what's happening. A small, grim smile touched my lips. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure they'll get it fixed. But Amara, you're the one who knows the system better than anyone, Isla pleaded. Julian wants you to come back. He's calling your phone, but you're not picking up. Isla, darling, you know I can't, I said, my voice dripping with a sarcasm so subtle she wouldn't catch it. I'm sure you saw the email. My role was deemed redundant. I no longer work there. The line went silent for a moment, and I could almost feel her shock. But you just closed the Nakamura deal, she stammered. He can't fire you for that. He just did, I replied, the bitterness in my voice now undeniable. And as for the system, I'm sure Julian will find a new and improved way to fix it. He's so great at restructuring, isn't he? Before she could reply, another call came through. It was Julian. I let it ring, and ring again. Isla, listen to me, I said, my voice hardening. This isn't your fault. You're 31, and you're brilliant. Don't let them do to you what they did to me. Don't let them make you redundant just because you've become a threat to their little boys' club. I've got to go. Be smart. I hung up, silencing my phone. The chaos I had set in motion was a distant hum, a symphony of destruction that was music to my ears. I knew Isla was a good person, a casualty of Julian's foolishness. But my sentinel loop was working not just for me, but for her, and for every woman who had been cast aside. My journey had just begun, and the world was about to see what happens when you silence a woman who has a voice in every line of code. I sat in my car, parked on a quiet side street a few blocks from the gleaming corporate tower of Nexus Innovations. The sun was a fiery orange disk dipping below the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows. My phone, now a weapon in my hand, was silent. I knew Julian would be frantic. He was a man who thrived on control, and in this moment, he had none. The thought brought a grim satisfaction that warmed me far more than the fading sunlight. A new message blinked on my screen. It was from Evelyn, the woman from a rival firm I'd met at a conference in Paris 2 years ago. We had shared a few conversations about the state of the industry, the unspoken biases against women in leadership, and the relentless pressure to prove ourselves. Her message was simple. I heard. Be ready. They'll be looking for a scapegoat. I messaged her back instantly. They already found one. Her reply was swift. No, they fired you. But they'll need someone to blame for the collapse. And trust me, Amara, that's not going to be you. I smiled. Evelyn understood the game. She knew that Julian wasn't just firing me. He was making a fatal miscalculation. I was the architect of their system, and I had just walked out the door with the master key. I put the car in drive and headed home, my mind already a dozen steps ahead of Julian's. I arrived home to a quiet apartment, the kind of stillness that always followed a long, stressful day. I made myself a cup of tea, the familiar ritual a soothing balm to the raging storm inside me. Just as the kettle whistled, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Ms. Reed? A man's voice, formal and urgent, came through the line. This is Mr. Hideo Tanaka, from the Nakamura Group. My heart pounded with a new kind of anticipation. Yes, Mr. Tanaka. Is there a problem with the contract? On the contrary, there is a problem with the company you work for. We have been informed of a massive system failure. We cannot access any of the blueprints or data we just approved. Our team has been trying to reach Julian Vance, but his line is busy. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea. I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Tanaka. As you may know, I no longer work at Nexus Innovations. I was let go. Yes, we are aware of that, and we are very concerned. His voice took on a sharper edge. Ms. Reed, when we signed that deal, we did so because of you. Your vision, your meticulous design, your passion. The company's name was just a vessel. We now believe that vessel is sinking. I leaned against my kitchen counter, a small smile playing on my lips. I see. And what do you propose we do about it, Mr. Tanaka? We would like to offer you a new contract, he said, the words landing like a soft pillow. Not with Nexus Innovations. We believe your talent is wasted there. We would like to invest in you directly, to fund your own company, your own vision. The offer was a vindication, a testament to everything I had worked for. It was the justice my soul had been craving. But I couldn't accept just yet. There was still work to be done. Mr. Tanaka, I said, my voice strong and confident. I am deeply honored, but I need to be transparent with you. Nexus Innovations system is compromised. I cannot guarantee the security of any data that remains there. I would not want to put the Nakamura Group at risk. We understand completely, he replied, a note of admiration in his voice. We have been in this business for decades. We know when a storm is coming. We will pull all our data and resources from them immediately. But we still want to work with you. What would you need to make this happen? I paused, allowing the weight of the moment to sink in. I would need a clean slate, a new team, my own company, built from the ground up, with a system that is truly secure. And I would need your trust. You have it, Ms. Reed. We believe in you, Mr. Tanaka said, his voice full of conviction. What is the name of your new company? I paused, picturing the name I had been drafting in my head for years. Umbra Systems. Umbra, he repeated, the word sounding poetic on his tongue. It is a beautiful name, a system in the shadows, waiting to emerge. We look forward to working with you, Ms. Reed. After I hung up, a profound sense of peace settled over me. It wasn't the kind of peace that comes from a lack of conflict, but the kind that comes from knowing you are in control. I had set a trap for Julian Vance, and he had walked right into it. Now, with the Nakamura Group on my side, I had the resources to build something new, something better. But I wasn't finished with Julian just yet. I had one more call to make, a different kind of call. I dialed the number for the Nexus Innovations Board of Directors. A stern-faced woman named Beatrice answered. This is Amara Reed, I said, my voice steady and unwavering. And I think you'll want to hear what I have to say about Julian Vance's restructuring plan. My phone was still warm from the call with Beatrice, the chairwoman of the board, as I sat in my car. The city lights of Vancouver began to twinkle on, mirroring the complex network of thoughts and plans swirling in my mind. Julian had thought he could make me redundant. He had no idea I was the very foundation he was about to fall from. Beatrice's voice had been a mix of polite professionalism and thinly veiled panic. Ms. Reed, I'm sure you understand this is a highly unusual time. We've been getting disturbing reports. I'm sure you have, I had replied, my voice as calm and steady as a mountain lake. And I'm sure Julian Vance is spinning a fantastic story about a technical glitch. But what I'm offering you is the truth. And what exactly is that, Amara? She had asked, dropping the formal tone. It was a sign she was taking me seriously. It's a story of mismanagement, systemic failures, and a CEO who deliberately dismantled the company's core infrastructure for his own personal gain, I said, laying it all out. It's the story of how Julian Vance systematically pushed out every senior female leader over the age of 45, deeming them not scalable. I have the data, the emails, the meeting minutes. I have it all. The line had gone silent for a long moment. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, the sudden realization that their restructuring was a ticking time bomb, and I held the detonator. Amara, are you suggesting this? Glitch is not an accident? She finally asked, her voice hushed. I had smiled to myself. I'm not suggesting anything, Beatrice. I'm telling you. Julian has been using Nexus Innovations as his personal playground for far too long. And now, the company is paying the price. We will look into this immediately, she had promised. Thank you for the information. I ended the call, knowing she was already in a private conference with the rest of the board. The dominoes had been set, and I had just pushed the first one. I drove home, the city lights blurring into streaks of color. The phone rang again. This time, it was Isla. I answered. Amara, thank God, the board is calling everyone. They're asking about Julian's restructuring plan. They're asking about the system collapse. They're panicking. Isla's voice was a mix of bewilderment and fear. What are they asking, exactly? I asked, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. They're asking if we've seen any, patterns in who was fired. They're asking about Julian's recent hires, his budget cuts. It's like they think he's been doing something shady. And what are you telling them? I told them what I saw. I told them about the private meetings, how he was always talking about bringing in new blood. I mentioned that I was worried I'd be next. I'm sorry, Amara. I didn't know what else to say. You did exactly the right thing, Isla. You told them the truth. But what is going on, Amara? I don't understand any of this. First, you're fired. Then the system goes down, and now the board is calling me? It's like a movie. It is a movie, Isla. And Julian is the villain who just ran out of script, I said. Listen to me and listen carefully. Stay out of this. Don't engage with him. Don't accept any of his offers. Just do your job and keep your head down. I'll be in touch. I hung up, a sense of protectiveness for Isla washing over me. She was a good kid, caught in the crossfire of a war she didn't understand. My sentinel loop wasn't just for me. It was for her, and for every other woman who had been undervalued and pushed aside. I spent the next 2 hours on my couch, watching the news. The financial reports were grim. Nexus Innovations' stock price had plummeted by over 20%. Analysts were calling it an unprecedented system failure. I knew they were wrong. It wasn't a failure. It was a revolution. The phone rang again, a number I hadn't seen before. I answered with caution. Ms. Reed, this is Evelyn. Her voice was calm and measured. I heard from my sources that the board is in a frenzy. Your phone call to Beatrice? It had quite an effect. I'm glad to hear that, I said. What else are your sources telling you? They're telling me Julian is a ghost in his own office. The board has essentially put him on administrative leave without officially announcing it. They've shut off his access to the systems, but he's too arrogant to even realize it. He thinks he's still in control. The irony is almost poetic. I've always been a fan of irony, I replied, a genuine smile forming on my face. So, what's your next move, Amara? Evelyn asked. The board is going to be looking for a new CEO. They're going to want someone who can clean up this mess. They're going to want you back. I paused, considering her words. I'm not going back, Evelyn. Not to that company, not to that system. I'm building something new, something better. A system that can't be compromised by arrogance or prejudice. And what is that exactly? It's called Umbra Systems, I said. A company that values talent over titles and integrity over profit. And I've already secured my first client. The Nakamura Group, I presume? You presume correctly? Evelyn laughed, a genuine, joyful sound. Amara, you're a force of nature. I knew it the moment I met you. So, what can I do to help? My mind raced, already formulating a plan. I'll need a team, the best and brightest, people who know what it's like to be underestimated, people who are ready to build something from the ground up. I know just the people, she replied, and I have a feeling they'll be very interested in what you have to say. I hung up, a new sense of purpose filling me. Julian had thought he was putting me out of a job. He had no idea he was giving me the freedom to create my own. The quiet revolution had just begun, and the world was about to see what happens when you underestimate a woman who has a voice in every line of code. My journey had just begun. After the call with Evelyn, a profound stillness settled over my apartment. The city lights of Vancouver began to twinkle on, a complex network of glittering points mirroring the thoughts and plans swirling in my mind. Julian had thought he could make me redundant. He had no idea I was the very foundation he was about to fall from. It was a strange sense of peace, not the kind that comes from an absence of conflict, but the kind that comes from knowing you've found your purpose. Julian had thought he was extinguishing me. In reality, he was giving me the kindling for a new fire. My phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number. When I answered, a voice, tight with panic, came through the line. "Hello, Amara. This is Beatrice. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "I'm still awake, Beatrice," I replied, my voice cool and even. "I need to speak with you, privately. Can we meet? We need your help." I let out a small, bitter laugh. "Help? You fired me. I thought you had a perfectly good restructuring plan in place." "Amara, please don't be like that. Julian has been a disaster," Beatrice said, her voice strained and full of a profound helplessness. "What you said has been confirmed. We found evidence of him deliberately pushing experienced female leaders out of the company. To make matters worse, we've discovered critical issues in the system. Everything is collapsing. We can't access anything. He has even locked us out of our own servers. And what do you want me to do? We want you to come back as CEO. We are prepared to offer you an extremely lucrative contract, whatever you want. We need you to fix this mess." I paused for a long moment, the silence thick with the weight of her offer. It was everything I had ever dreamed of, the validation I had waited 11 years for. But to go back to the place that had discarded me? The place that had deemed me redundant? Never. "Beatrice, I'm not coming back. Julian has compromised the company, and that's a consequence you have to live with. You trusted him? You enabled his decisions? I can't fix a system that was built on a foundation of rot." "Then please, just tell us what you can do. We need information. We need to understand what's happening." "I'll give you a bit of information, but not for Julian's sake. For the sake of people like Isla, for the people who are being caught in this mess," I said. "Look for a code base called Raven Wake. It's a script that has been activated. Julian thought it would erase all traces of me from the system. In reality, it erased all traces of him." Beatrice's voice was a shaky whisper. What did he do?" "He tried to erase me, but I was smarter. Raven Wake will purge all information tied to Julian Vance, his files, his accounts, the projects he was ever associated with. He will become a ghost in his own company." When I hung up, I felt an immense sense of relief. I was no longer responsible for the mess at Nexus Innovations. I had handed the bomb back to the very people who had created it. A few hours later, I received a text from Isla. "Amara, what is going on? The police are here. Julian was arrested. They're saying he sabotaged the system and stole critical files." I smiled to myself. Julian had tried to pin the blame on me, but he didn't know I had turned the tables. Raven Wake had not only erased him from the system, but it had also created a digital trail of evidence that led right back to him. I replied to Isla, "Everything's going to be okay, Isla. Just stay calm. There's a new beginning on the horizon. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. The furious fire that had raged within me had transformed into a new kind of power, a clear and decisive purpose. I was no longer Amara of Nexus Innovations. I was Amara of Umbra Systems, and my story was just beginning. The city of Vancouver, once a backdrop to my corporate prison, now felt like a blank canvas. I wasn't just unemployed, I was liberated. Julian Vance's fall was a satisfying echo, but it was just a prelude. My real work was about to begin. The next morning, I met Evelyn at a small, unassuming cafe a few blocks from the waterfront. She was a woman in her early 50s, with silver streaks in her hair and an unwavering look in her eyes. I had always admired her quiet strength, her ability to navigate the cutthroat world of architecture with grace and a sharp mind. "So, Umbra Systems?" she said, stirring her coffee. "I like it. It's subtle. It suggests you're operating from the shadows." "The name reflects the journey," I replied, taking a sip of my own coffee. "We're not building towers in the sky. We're building the foundations for those who will." "And who are we?" she asked, her gaze intense. "We are the people Julian Vance considered redundant." "The ones he tried to erase?" I said, a fire burning in my voice. "I want to build a team of women over 45 who were pushed out, discredited, and undervalued. I want to build a company based on experience, not age." Evelyn smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. "That's a powerful vision, Amara. I can get on board with that." "I was hoping you'd say that," I said, leaning forward. "Evelyn, I want you on my team. I want you to be my co-founder. Your expertise is invaluable, your network is extensive, and you understand the game better than anyone." She didn't hesitate. "I'm in. Let's build something truly great." We spent the next few hours meticulously planning. We outlined our core values: transparency, integrity, and meritocracy. We discussed our target clients, focusing on those who had been burned by Nexus Innovations. We talked about the technology, the code, the very essence of what Umbra Systems would be. It wasn't about revenge, it was about building a legacy. Later that day, I received a call from Isla. Her voice was still shaky, but there was a new confidence in her tone. "Amara, the board has called a meeting with me," she said. "They want to know everything. They want to know about your work, about my work, about the projects Julian was involved in." "What did you tell them?" "I told them everything. About your sentinel loop, about how Julian was trying to push us all out, about the private meetings he held. I didn't hold anything back," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I'm so angry, Amara. I trusted him. We all did." "I know, Isla. I know it's hard, but you did the right thing," I said, my voice soft but firm. "And you know what? The truth is your greatest weapon." "So, what's next for me?" she asked, a vulnerable note in her voice. "What's next for you is you get to decide your own future," I said, a new idea forming in my mind. "Isla, I'm starting a new company. It's called Umbra Systems. We're going to build a team of the best and brightest. I want you to be a part of it." A stunned silence filled the line. "Amara, are you serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life. You're a brilliant architect, Isla. You have a vision, and I want to give you the platform to build it." But what about Nexus Innovations?" she stammered. "Nexus Innovations is a sinking ship, Isla. I'm offering you a life raft. You can stay and go down with them, or you can come with me and help me build a new ship from scratch." "I'm in," she said, her voice filled with a newfound conviction. "Count me in, Amara. I'm ready to build something new." I hung up the phone, a wave of satisfaction washing over me. I wasn't just building a company. I was building a community. A safe haven for those who had been discarded, a place where their talents would be valued and their voices would be heard. As night fell, I sat at my desk, my grandfather's pen in my hand. I opened a new document on my laptop. The first line I typed wasn't a business plan or a mission statement. It was an email to a group of people, a group of women who had once been my mentors, my colleagues, and my friends. The subject line read, "A New Dawn, Umbra Systems." I knew that with Evelyn by my side and Isla ready to join, my quiet revolution was no longer just a whisper in the machine. It was a movement, a force of nature, and it was just getting started. The next day felt different. The air was charged with a new energy, a palpable sense of anticipation. I was no longer a cast-off employee. I was a founder. With Evelyn and Isla on board, my quiet revolution was gaining momentum. But there was one last act to perform at Nexus Innovations before I could truly move on. Julian Vance's arrest was the lead story on every business news channel. The charges were serious: corporate sabotage, data theft, and willful mismanagement. The narrative was simple, clean, and entirely fabricated by my Raven Wake protocol. He had tried to frame me, but I had turned his weapon against him. My phone rang just as I was having breakfast. It was Beatrice. "Amara, the board has called an emergency meeting. We need you to come in. The police have Julian's devices. They've found a trail of evidence leading directly to him. He's claiming it's a setup. He's claiming it's your work." "And what do you believe, Beatrice?" I asked, a hint of steel in my voice. "I believe what the evidence tells me. We need you here to verify some of the data. We need to understand the full scope of the damage. Julian is in the boardroom right now, making a mockery of the situation. He's demanding to speak with you." "I'll be there," I said. It was time for the final act. I arrived at the Nexus Innovations Tower, the same place where my old life had ended. The lobby was buzzing with whispers. Employees stared at me, a mix of curiosity and awe in their eyes. I walked with my head held high, a ghost returning to haunt its old home. The boardroom was a scene of chaos. Julian, his face pale and eyes wild, was yelling at the board members. His lawyer, a sharp-faced man in an expensive suit, was frantically trying to calm him down. Beatrice sat at the head of the table, her expression grim. "Here she is! The woman who ruined everything!" Julian shouted, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She's the one! She's the one who sabotaged the company." I walked to the table and took a seat, my gaze fixed on him. "Hello, Julian. I hope you're enjoying your last moments of freedom." "Don't talk to her!" Julian's lawyer snapped. "She has no business being here." "On the contrary," Beatrice interjected, her voice firm. "Amara Reed is here at the board's request. We believe she can shed some light on the recent events." "It's simple, Julian," I said, ignoring his lawyer. "You tried to erase me. You sent me an email, a cold, clinical dismissal. You thought I was a line in a spreadsheet, easily deleted. But I'm not. I'm a person. And I'm a better programmer than you could ever hope to be. You planted that evidence." He spat. "You're trying to frame me." "Did I? The police have your devices, Julian. The very devices you used to try and wipe me from the system. Did I plant a code on your hard drive that searched for every single one of your files and corrupted them? Did I manipulate your email to send a fake severance letter to yourself? Did I program a command that erased your name from the company's core systems?" "No, Julian, you did. You wrote the script. I just held up the mirror." The room was silent. The board members exchanged nervous glances. Julian's lawyer looked at him, his face a mask of disappointment. "You're a liar!" Julian screamed. "She's a liar! She's trying to take my company from me!" Your company? I scoffed. You never had a company, Julian. You had a golden ticket, a name on a door, and a team of brilliant people you systematically destroyed. You're a hollow man, Julian. A shell. You thought you were building an empire, but you were just a parasite. And I, your host, just decided to shed you. Beatrice stood up, her voice cutting through the tension. Amara has shown us enough. Julian, you are officially terminated. We have evidence of your actions, and we will be cooperating fully with the police. As for your assets, they are frozen. We will be pursuing civil charges as well. Julian's face went white. His lawyer began to argue, but Beatrice silenced him with a wave of her hand. The meeting was over. As Julian was led away by 2 police officers, he stopped and looked back at me, his eyes filled with a desperate, venomous hatred. "This isn't over, Amara," he whispered. "I'll be back." I smiled, a genuine, victorious smile. "I'll be waiting, Julian. But I won't be at Nexus Innovations. I'll be somewhere else, building something new. And I'll be stronger than ever." I left the boardroom, the echoes of my words hanging in the air. The long walk down the corridor, past the buzzing server room, and out into the Vancouver night felt different. It was no longer a walk of defeat, but a walk of triumph. The quiet revolution was complete, and I was finally free to start building the new world. My world. The triumph I felt leaving the Nexus Innovations Tower was short-lived. It was one thing to tear down an old empire. It was another to build a new one from its ashes. The real work began the moment I stepped back into my quiet Vancouver apartment. With Julian Vance's downfall secured, my mind shifted from destruction to creation. My first order of business was to secure a physical space for Umbra Systems. Not a corporate palace of glass and steel like Nexus, but a place that felt like a sanctuary for innovation. I found it in an old brick and beam building in Gastown, a historic part of the city. The space was raw, with exposed brick walls and high ceilings, a stark contrast to the sterile, modern aesthetic of my past. It was a blank canvas, just like my new career. My phone rang as I was sketching out the floor plan. It was Isla. Her voice, no longer shaky, was filled with a newfound energy. "Amara, I did it," she said. "I resigned." I walked into Julian's old office, looked Beatrice right in the eye, and told her I was leaving. She tried to offer me a promotion, a raise, everything. She said they needed me to rebuild the company. "And what did you say?" I asked, a proud smile on my face. I said, "I'm not rebuilding. I'm building something new." I told her I was joining you. She looked shocked, like a ghost had just walked into the room. "Good," I replied. "Now, I need you to do something for me. I need you to make a list. Every woman over 45 who was pushed out, discredited, or made to feel redundant by Julian's restructuring plan. We're going to build our own team, our own company." "Consider it done," she said. "I'll send it to you by the end of the day." Later that evening, I got another call, this time from Evelyn. She was bubbling with excitement. "Amara, you're not going to believe this. My sources at Nexus are telling me the board is in a frenzy. They're trying to figure out how to salvage the Nakamura Group contract. They've realized that the code for the project is so intertwined with your own architecture, they can't even get it to run without a total rebuild. They're desperate." "Let them be desperate," I said. "They made their bed. Now, they can lie in it." "But here's the best part," Evelyn continued. "The Nakamura Group is telling everyone in the industry about you. They're singing your praises. They're telling their competitors that you're the real genius, not Nexus Innovations. Our phones are ringing off the hook, and we don't even have an office yet." I paused, a genuine feeling of astonishment washing over me. "That's incredible." "It's not incredible, Amara," she said, her voice serious. It's justice. You built something, and now you're finally getting the recognition you deserve. I've already set up our first meeting, the Ether Group. They're a tech giant looking to rebuild their data infrastructure. And they heard about your ghost protocol? They're calling it that? I laughed. Yes, and they're fascinated. They want to meet with you. They want to hear about Umbra systems. They want a piece of the revolution. The next week was a whirlwind. Evelyn, Isla, and I worked tirelessly. We met with clients, finalized our business plan, and started the long process of hiring our team. The list Isla had provided was a roadmap to a hidden network of talent. We reached out to women who had been forced into early retirement, women who had been passed over for promotions, and women who had simply been told they were too old. Our first team meeting was in the empty office, surrounded by brick walls and the faint scent of old timber. There were 5 of us, a small but formidable group of women who had all been discarded by the same system. "Welcome to Umbra Systems," I said, looking at their faces. "I know some of you may be feeling apprehensive. You may be wondering if this is real, if we can really build something from nothing." "Amara, we're not starting from nothing?" A woman named Lena, a brilliant software engineer who had been fired from Nexus at 52, said, her voice full of a quiet conviction. "We're starting with experience. We're starting with a network of people who trust us. And we're starting with the knowledge that we've all been underestimated. That's a very powerful foundation." "She's right," Isla added, her face glowing with determination. Julian thought he was our judge and jury. He thought he could write our ending, but he didn't know we were the ones who wrote the code. And now, we're going to use that code to build a future he never could have imagined. As I listened to them, I realized that my anger and my pain had finally found a home. My quiet revolution was no longer just about me. It was about them. It was about building a system that was stronger, better, and more just than the one that had cast us aside. The genesis of Umbra Systems was not just a business venture, it was a promise that from the ashes of our past, we would build a future so bright, it would cast a shadow on the very people who tried to bury us in darkness. The months that followed were a whirlwind of construction, creation, and catharsis. The old brick-and-beam office in Gastown was transformed. The raw space, once a symbol of our nascent company, was now a bustling hub of innovation. Exposed brick walls were lined with sleek, modern monitors. The high ceilings echoed with the collaborative chatter of a team of brilliant minds. We were Umbra Systems, and we were building our future. Our first major project with the Nakamura Group was a resounding success. We didn't just rebuild their data infrastructure, we reinvented it. We implemented a new security protocol that made Julian's old system look like a child's toy. Mr. Tanaka called me personally to congratulate the team, his voice filled with a reverence I had never heard from him before. "Ms. Reed, you did not just deliver a product," he said. "You delivered a revolution. The entire industry is watching." And he was right. The Ether Group, our second client, was so impressed with our work that they offered us a multi-year contract to be their exclusive architectural design firm. The women on our team, once told they were redundant, were now celebrated as industry pioneers. Lena, our software engineer, was hailed as a genius. Isla, once a frightened junior architect, was now a confident project lead, her designs winning awards and garnering international acclaim. My own life had changed in ways I couldn't have imagined. I was no longer defined by my job. I was defined by my purpose. I spent my days building, not for a faceless corporation, but for a team of people who believed in me, and for a vision that was truly my own. My nights were spent at home, sharing stories with my son, showing him that his mother was not a victim, but a survivor. I was no longer an architect. I was an artist, a builder, a leader. One day, as I was working late in the office, I received an email. The subject line was simply, "Updates from Nexus Innovations." My heart skipped a beat. I opened it with a mix of curiosity and dread. It was from Beatrice. She had been named the interim CEO, and she was reaching out to me for advice. Nexus Innovations was in a death spiral. Their stock had plummeted by over 80%. They had lost nearly all of their major clients. The board was in disarray. Julian's trial was ongoing, and the details were painting a damning picture of corporate greed and misogyny. I replied to Beatrice with a single sentence, "You made your bed. Now you must lie in it." It was not a cruel response, but a necessary one. I had no desire for revenge. I had moved on. My justice was not in their downfall, but in my own success. A few months later, the news broke. Nexus Innovations had filed for bankruptcy. The tower, once a gleaming symbol of corporate power, was now a tombstone for Julian Vance's ambition. I felt no joy, no sense of triumph. Just a quiet satisfaction. The system that had discarded me was gone. My final act was to close the sentinel loop. The silent protocol, the ghost in the machine, had done its job. It had protected my work, exposed the truth, and given me the freedom to build something new. As I deleted the code from my phone, I felt a profound sense of closure. The past was behind me. The future was here. I sat in my new office, a simple, elegant space with a panoramic view of the Vancouver skyline. The morning sun was streaming through the window, illuminating the words on the company sign, Umbra Systems. The journey had been long, fraught with disappointment and setbacks, but it had led me here. I had found my freedom not in a corporate title or a corner office, but in the ability to create, to innovate, and to be my own boss. I was no longer a pawn in someone else's game. I was the player. As I looked out at the city, I knew that this was just the beginning of my quiet revolution. The world was full of outdated systems and people who underestimated others. And I was ready to rebuild them, one project at a time. The dawn of Umbra had arrived. The story of Amara Reed offers a powerful message. Never underestimate yourself. Always prepare for any situation, building your own skills and network in silence. When pushed to the brink, turn injustice into motivation to create a new beginning and a new empire for yourself. The best revenge is not destruction, but success that shines brighter than ever before. Thank you for listening to Amara's story. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We look forward to hearing how this story resonates with you. Until next time, stay strong and continue to build your own future.